weekly finance meeting for the commissioners today, February 1, 2023, appointed hour 1:30 p.m. Calling the meeting to order, opening with the opportunity for public comments. So everyone online. So, okay, nothing here. So we'll move on to number 3. We do have the minutes in hand of the meeting of January 25 of this year. We'll need action on that.
Move the minutes of January 25th.
I second.
All right, moved and seconded. If there's no further questions or comments, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That moves us right into our topics of discussion today. We have 2. The first one being the regarding the continuance of the Cumberland County Prison Vivitrol program with the opioid settlement funding, and Jack is here to, and as well as Rebekah, Finkey, to present us with some information that's being proposed.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. If you recall, we met back in October to talk about the opioid settlement, multi-state opioid settlement. And so this is a bit of an update, but also a request to commit some of those funds. So I think we have some PowerPoint slides, and we're going to share them on, or just walk through them in the hard copy.
The do Jack is okay.
If you're okay with the hard copy,
Yeah.
we can do it that way. Okay. So unfortunately, I had hoped that we would have a lot of additional information from the state trust by now, but we do not. They have only met a few times. I'm not sure that they've even held any public meetings thus far. I get my information because one of my colleagues, the SCA director from Lycoming and Clinton counties, is one of the county representatives, one of the other regions. And so if you remember the last time we spoke about this, there are a number of unanswered questions that I think are pretty important for counties to have some information on. Clarification about the timeline in particular. Do you have to spend it within 18 months? Do you have to commit it within 18 months? And when does the 18 months start? What will the reporting requirements be? How much flexibility will counties have? You might remember that one of my recommendations was, because the payments are going to vary from one payment to the next, that we come up with an annual figure that we want to commit to opioid related funding, and recognize that in some years the money coming in will be more than that. Other years it will be less than that. But we will, as part of our budget, establish a reserve fund so that we're not dealing with fluctuations from year to year. And then we still haven't gotten any more information about the additional litigation that's been pending and how that will affect payments. So not a lot to give you in the way of updates. I can tell you that Cumberland County, as projected, did receive its first 2 payments. The first one came at the end of August. The second one came at the very end of December. We got an estimate in August as to what the payments would be. All the counties did. And then the payments that arrived in December, the second payment, were less than what was estimated. So a new estimate has been provided. And apparently they failed to take into account some of the expenses. And so they come up with a revised estimate. But Cumberland County, in its 2 payments received so far, has received $958,000. Also, as a reminder, the first year is an anomaly. There are 18 payments, but 2 of them come in the first year. There will be annual payments for the next 16 years, and those payments will all come in December. And as mentioned earlier, they're going to vary from year to year. Some of the recommendations that I had presented to you back in October were that we prioritize continuation of programming that we've already started in response to the opioid crisis. And that include expansion of substance use disorder treatment, especially medication-assisted treatment, strengthening case management and recovery support, strengthening problem-solving courts, continuing the community education and distribution of naloxone, and continuing to expand evidence-based prevention. And that we develop a strategy for ensuring relatively even funding every year. So one of the programs that we want to focus on today is Cumberland County Prison Vivitrol. This is something, and let me start by reminding you that Vivitrol is one of the 3 FDA-approved forms of medication-assisted treatment. It's Vivitrol, or the generic name is naltrexone, buprenorphine or Suboxone, and then methadone. I'll also mention, because it's been in the news, that medical marijuana is not an FDA-approved medication for opioid use disorders, despite the fact that it is a qualifying medical condition. Pennsylvania's medical marijuana, something that our association opposed to no avail. But that's an aside. That's the whole other. So one of the things that we recognized early on when we started paying close attention to the rise in opioid use, rise in opioid-related deaths, is that a significant number of the people who died of an overdose did so following their release from prison. You might remember that there was actually a reporter from the Central back then, Josh Vaughn, who took a look at the data. He took a look at all the people who died of overdoses in a couple years, and he saw that a significant percentage of them had been involved in the criminal justice system. Part of those were involved in probation and parole, so they did have ongoing supervision. But another significant group had gone to prison, had posted bail, and had been released from prison before ever being sentenced. And that was the group that we had missed an opportunity to attempt to intervene with. And so we started to design some programs, including the first opioid intervention court, now the overdose intervention court, to try to address that. But we also thought, well, the prison houses a lot of folks with opioid use disorders. We knew that from the data that they had been sharing with us on the people that need to be detoxed once they enter the prison, because they are going through withdrawal once they're separated from their drug of choice. Many of those are alcohol related, but many of them are opioid. So at that point, Rebekah and I took a look at what might be available, and there was a funding opportunity back in 2000. And it actually started in 2016. Funding didn't come through until 2017 from the Department of Corrections to implement a jail-based Vivitrol. We applied, we received the funding, and we implemented the program. And the program has been in place ever since. The DOC funding was temporary. It ran out. We were told there'd be a chance to apply for additional money. It didn't come right away. We had to fill that in with some money I was able to cobble together from our state agency, DNAP. They started getting some additional federal funding. And then there was another funding opportunity through PCCD we applied for, and that's what has been funding the program for the last 3.5 years. That was a 2-year grant, but because of a variety of factors, we had money left over at the end of the 2 years, and we were able to get no cost extensions to extend the program. But we're at the point where the money will soon be exhausted. And so this falls into the category of what I recommend. Let's identify programs that we've started that have shown positive outcomes that we think are making a difference and that we want to continue. And so that's why we are bringing this presentation to you. So at this point, I want to hand it over to Rebekah to share a little bit of the statistics of the information about the program there at the present.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioners. I wanted to give you an update on the past 2 years of the Vivitrol program. We did have a bit of a lull in 2020, but we've picked back up and have a significant number of participants. In 2021 and 2022, there were 35 unique individual participants in the program. We gave 59 total shots just at the jail in 2021, and that increased to 66 injections for those 35 participants. We found that by providing our work release participants, we have with the ability to have the injections the entire time they're on work release, that's reduced relapse while they're participating in the program. In fact, one gentleman in 2022 received 8 injections. Just so you realize, the program includes the RAISE recovery specialists. They help us with education and counseling while the person is in the jail, and then they carry their own caseloads when an inmate is released and goes out into the community. Right now, we're currently staffed with 2 RAISE recovery specialists. They also participate in Tom's Court, OIC, and treatment court. Right now, there are 18 participants in the community. 1 is in treatment court, 4 are in OIC, and 1 participant is in Tom's. And in 2022, the 17 participants that they had received 59 injections at PRS. I would make a distinction that as soon as they get out into the community and we're able to have their medical assistance turned back on, the grant is normally not paying for those injections in the community, just the salaries of the recovery specialists working with them. But occasionally a person has Medicare, which will not fund MAT, or a private insurance that will not, and the grant does pick that up. And we currently have 2 participants in the community that are grant funded. I would like to highlight that the program seems to be increasing even more. January through September of 2022, there was an average of 4 to 5 injections given in the jail. The last 3 months of 2022, that has doubled, and we've given 8 to 10 injections per month. And Andrea Jansen screened 18 people in January for the program. I guess the most critical piece that I'd want you to know is that nobody in the program for all 6 years has ever overdosed. We have had only 1 individual who did overdose and die, but that was 6 months after they had left our program. Is there anything else I could tell you that you'd be interested in knowing?
Rebekah, how long does the effect of 1 shot last for?
It's to last 30 days.
Okay,
They're to have 1 injection per month.
thank you.
It's still around 1,000 a shot.
It's closer to 1250, Vince.
Okay.
Yes, it's an expensive medication, no doubt about it.
It is significantly less expensive than Sublocade, though, which is upwards of $1,800.
Sublocade is the implant version of buprenorphine. That also lasts for about a month, right?
Correct.
Thank you, Rebekah. So the other thing I mentioned on the slide, I shared with you the latest data from Charlie Hall, our county coroner. And you can see that with the exception of the COVID-19 pandemic year 2020, we have seen some significant progress in a diminishing number of overdose fatalities in Cumberland County. We lost some of our progress, but it looks like we have regained that. That's not to say that we're happy with only 39 fatalities in 2022. That's still far too many. Still more work to be done, but at least the trend is going in the right direction. And we're not saying that the prison Vivitrol program is the sole reason for this. We've implemented a whole host of strategies, but it's part of that multi-pronged approach. And we think that it has contributed to the modest success that we've had thus far. So let's get to some of the specifics of the ask. Our recommendation is that we commit some of Cumberland County's opioid settlement funds to continue the program. We estimate the annual cost would be $188,400. This would cover the cost of the Vivitrol injections in the prison provided via Prime Care. It would cover Vivitrol injections in the community for those who are uninsured, don't qualify for medical assistance, don't have private insurance that would cover that. Those are provided through a contract we have with PRS, Positive Recovery Solutions. And then it would cover the cost of the 2 full-time equivalent recovery specialists from the RAISE project. And we recommend that the funding be committed on a calendar year basis because, and that's going to be a recommendation going forward with all the opioid funding. With the payments coming in December of each year, it seems like the trust is leaning toward that as being sort of the program year, a calendar year basis. So questions or comments?
I'm talking from Jenny.
The only other slides that are on there are a repeat of some information that I shared with you back in October. It's one of the appendices from the actual multi-state agreement. It spells out how the funds can be used. And you can see just by glancing at it, this program kind of checks off a number of those boxes. It's MAT, it's criminal justice population, and it's recovery support services. So I wasn't quite sure in filling out the questionnaire whether this is something you feel comfortable taking action on today, or whether you just wanted to hear some information. I think that's up to you folks. If you're comfortable with the recommendation, or if you need some additional information or some time to chew on it.
Yeah, what's our time frame again on this? What's the deadline to really get an answer on it?
There is no deadline from the state yet. We're still
Okay.
waiting to hear.
They're just going to do what they're going to do.
But there is some urgency in that the program is running out of money.
Right.
So if
At the end of the year, or what time frame?
I think within a month or two,
A
we're
month?
going to be running out of.
That sounds urgent.
What one of the things that happened, this became apparent to us. We had originally projected that the remaining PCCD funds would get us into March and maybe April. And then we did our second quarter report for PCCD, and we saw the bump up that Rebekah referred to in the number of injections in prison, and those are covered by the grant. So that made us realize, oh, okay, we need to bring this to the commissioners.
What's the interest of the board in terms of action?
I'm fine with moving forward with it today.
Yeah, I just have a question though, and I'm fine for Jack, the remaining 770,000, is that earmarked yet?
No, that's and that's one of the things. Well, I've been waiting on more information from the state trust fund, and I do have some thoughts and opinions on that, but I wanted to hear more about the reporting requirements. And one of my recommendations, actually, I can give it to you in advance, is that we have 18 payments across 17 years two of the payments have come in the first year without, and then the monies come before the guidelines from the state. My suggestion is that we look at this as a 17-year funding stream. And we take the first two payments and well, that we look at the 18-year average total amount of money that we're going to come up with an average per 17 years and use that as our budget and request permission from the state trust fund to take whatever falls above that and put it into that risk reserve fund that I talked about. That would be earning interest, by the way. And so it could also help fund future programming in that regard. But again, I felt it was premature. I thought we should get some more information from the state before going forward with that. But I can tell you though that counties across the state are across the board on this. Some are out there actively committing their funds, and others are very much in a wait and see approach to get more information. So it's up to you folks on how to decide. I think at the last meeting, you had at least tentatively indicated that it would make sense to route the funding through our department. I think the finance office needs to have that confirmed so that they can set up the accounts and be able to do that. And incidentally, the Perry County Commissioners are in the same boat, waiting for more information. In fact, they're probably even a little more on hold because, as you know, Commissioner Eby submitted his resignation for health reasons in December. So they're awaiting an appointment now of a third commissioner. I don't think they want to move forward too far without having that person identified.
Okay, refresh my memory. So that the fund that we're being paid by is replenished. How is that? The findings that require annual payments from?
Yeah, there's we get paid from the state trust. There's also a national trust,
Right,
that has been set up, and the national trust receives the payments from the litigants, the companies that were sued, on an annual basis, and then they turn around, give it to the state turns around, gives it to the county and other
so
municipalities.
litigants are paying it annually, and I'm assuming there's protections in place so that they can't skirt that through dissolution or something.
I think that's why we're paying pretty high legal fees. I assume that as well. That's all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted in that regard. And I'll remind you that it's a weird combination because the settlement so far is actually two settlements. One is with 3 distributors and another one is with 1 manufacturer. One takes place across 9 years, the other one across 18 years. So that's why there's a fluctuation in the payments as well. But again, they anticipate that there will be more added too. So we may end up with starting with an annual target for budgeting the funds and then adjust it based on new information when it comes in.
So their annual pay, is there an automatic escalator, or is there anything to factor in time value of money, or is it just a flat amount every year?
It's just a flat amount every year. Yeah, there's no,
Right.
they're not paying interest. They agreed to these payments and it's sort of a installment plan, I guess.
The future payments are made with money that's less valuable. Is what's happening. So
That's true.
yeah, it's okay. Right. Well, I guess the bigger emphasis is on the assurance that there is cash flowing, not how much. So
Yeah.
safety factors first. Okay. So motion.
Move to continue the Cumberland County Prison Vivitrol program using opioid settlement funding as discussed today.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. If there's no further comments or questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
All right. That moves us, of course, on to the second discussion item. We have possible action as well. This is on an addendum to the January 19 Memorandum of Understandings providing for projects and performance goals related to the conditional funding for the library system. And of course, Blatchley is here to.
Good afternoon. Yes, and thank you for signing the MOU on the 19th of January. We were happy to get that back in our hands. And the library directors and I have been working on a list of projects and trying to narrow down, keep to 4 or 5 for the conditional grants for 2023. We have also, in that process, identified 4 projects that we're going to start doing research and hopefully have by December a list of projects for 2024 already. So, so it was really a very productive process for us. So I provided for you the proposed conditional grant projects, 5 of them, with suggested grant funding amounts for each one. I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about them, but there's quite a bit of information there already. But the chat with the librarian it's a statewide service that the platform already exists. We do not participate in it, and with our participation, we'll be given a full online reference management system with a customized form, a little widget we can put on our website, so people can get on there, whether it's reaching customers we already have or people in the community that don't currently use libraries can also use it at any time. And we think it will improve our service, our ability to give out answers. It'll also help us contribute to the statewide service, which does come at a cost to the state. It's available 24/7. And so we will actually have sort of our own little answer book that they can rely on if it is a local question, because we would become members of this. And it does have a unique interface that captures local statistics. So we'll be able to record and report those back. And that project would be, we have to have a project coordinator, and that person would definitely be out of our office, but we do have all the not every member library agreeing to participate, but most of the member libraries agreeing to have people staff. We have to staff at a minimum of 5 hours a week. And some of the libraries even more enthusiastic to do more hours than that. So we'll see how that goes. But we would use some of the funding to help probably provide a stipend, since we don't control their salaries and they run the gamut. We would use that as a stipend to help defray some of the costs for them to do this. The second project is a website usability study, and if you've been around a while, you probably know we did one of these in 2010. It's been a long time since we did a website usability study, and a lot of things have changed, especially in terms of WC3 compliance. And we did take a course in 2015 on that and refreshed our guidelines in 2020. But we really think it's time to bring in a professional to look at our website and make sure that we're meeting all the standards. There was a fairly recent lawsuit against Penn State University for not being fully compliant with usability standards. And so, libraries look at that and think we could be next. So we want to make sure that our website is up to speed, and see if we do need any further overhaul on our website or further like a full website redesign. We're hoping it won't come to that extreme, but we would use the money to help pay for that, a professional consultant to help us with that project. The third one is related to our integrated library system software. It has a feature that we can now use. We're up to the upgraded version where we can turn on it's called auto renewals. And we have a large number of people who, if they go one day overdue with a material, and under our old MOU, they weren't able to then use library services at all. And that's kind of what inspired this idea, was stopping people from being able to use the library. And so with the new MOU, we're investigating whether or not we can reverse that policy. to have a low threshold for fines, but also by implementing the auto renewal, it will prevent those fines from happening in the first place. It's really those nagging little fines that cause the most consternation with our libraries, people coming in angry because they got this and they can't use their card now. And so we'd be tracking things like the number of complaints, the number of, we can kind of assume what is a fine for a 1-day infraction, forgot to renew it, and survey our customer satisfaction. But we believe we've lost some customers, and we know we have some angry customers because of the way we've been doing things. So we think the auto renewal will go a long way to building some of that goodwill back up. And it seems like it would be a pretty easy thing to implement, but it would mean, I always hate to call fines revenue, but it would mean a loss in fine revenue because those fines would never occur in the first place.
We had discussion on this a number of years ago. I remember exactly what you're saying. It was not touted that revenue was going to make that much difference, but that it could make the behavioral difference in getting people to comply with the standard that's in place.
Right.
So if you put an auto renewal on, how do you meet that goal of ensuring your materials are?
Yeah, so what happens right now is we send out a automated reminder that your materials are due back at the library. What this does is if it's eligible for auto renewal, it sends you something that says you now have a new due date. Here's what your new due date is. And if there are things on your list that are due, it says, here's your due. They are due. They need to come back to the library. You have 2 days. Is what we currently use. So, so it would still have that responsibility if someone has a request on the material, or I think we can have a threshold for how many times it can be renewed. I'm not 100% certain on that point, but if that's how it works, it would tell them this is ineligible for renewal. It has to come back by this day, or you will have penalties.
So how do you distinguish between what's renewable, what's not?
Oh, that's a good question. So we have a couple of factors. One, if somebody else has a request on it, it's not renewable. I hope I remember that. If you personally, if you have too many fines or fees, it's not renewable. It's just by default, your card's under suspension and you can't renew. If you have more than 100 items out, pretty odd occurrence, but that would make it not eligible.
That's possible.
It is, yeah, we actually at 99, we get a message and we have a few people who.
I remember picking through the library and having to put stuff back because I had to get under my 6-book limit, I think it was at the time.
Oh my, yeah, it's 100. And like I said, there aren't very many people who have out that many, but those who do generally know how many they've got that calculated. So those are a few of the reasons. I'm sure there are others. I'm just not thinking of them right now, but the software would know this is not eligible and renew it. So yeah, so that's one that we're excited to try that out. And we believe that we are at a point where we can harness that power from our software. The fourth project is to this actually, I want to back up and say this project really was inspired by one, COVID, and two, the meetings with MHIDD during the last conditional grant process. A couple things came out of those. One was use of our rooms and having the hybrid technology. Some libraries had, they had a laptop with a little microphone or something, but it really wasn't adequate. And they are looking to get better technology that people could come in and use to do hybrid meetings in their spaces. And of course that the library could use for their own meetings as well. And then inspired by MHIDD was the room reservation software. We do have one library that has their own homegrown room reservation form that seems to work pretty well, but we want to get that technology for all of our libraries so that they could offer that either, we've talked about maybe it's just an internal thing that we offer to those county partners that we've been talking to and say, yes, we want to use your spaces. Or maybe it's something we put on our website freely for the world to reserve our spaces. But but it would really make that, streamline that process. And then,
One question on that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that came up recently regarding some event that was being hosted. And the question was, who approves and what are the standards for approval? Because are they being evenly applied? All of that. I know I've reserved rooms out here at Boston sometimes, and I had to turn in a, pretty
Yes.
detailed application well in advance.
Right. So you had to fill out a whole application, and you had to probably call or email and talk to the right person. This would be the way that it works for Simpson is the library that has it right now, and it's a sort of preliminary. It blocks off that time space for you. They do review the application and make sure it meets our standards. Things like you. If you're having a meeting, it has to be open to the, if you want to use our meeting room for free, it has to be open to the public. Anybody can attend, that sort of thing. So they're going to look at it through that. If it is a meeting that, well, each library has their own policy, so I can't.
That was my next question. Is there a universal standard across libraries? Because when this last incident was, I always told people that's up to your local libraries to governing board.
It is.
And it's, that's who you want to talk to if you want to change.
Yeah, each library's policy is their own. There are a lot of similarities from policy to policy, but the very details of them do change from library to library. So yeah, so this would just show availability, allow people to put a hold on the room until they get their application approved. And then the fifth project is, this was inspired by a project that was done in Allegheny County. I haven't checked in on it lately. It sounds like it somewhat fell apart for them during the pandemic. They still have it on their website, so, and you can still borrow the materials. So I guess it still exists. But it's a really, they had a really great impact. Of course, they have a county park system, so that made that's one thing that we would need to figure out who are our partners going to be. But things like the Nature Conservancy of Central Pennsylvania might be a partner, or some of our parks might be partners. And of course, we did the Go Cumberland hiking program with WellSpan this year, and they could be a partner. But this project will be creating backpacks that could be borrowed from libraries that are fully equipped with things like field guides, maps of area parks that you might want to visit. So they wouldn't be specific to a park. Nature journal prompts, resources like, I think of John Bittner giving out the tick ID cards and binoculars, things like that would be in these. They'd be themed backpacks, and I put some possible topics there like wildflowers, trees, insects, birds, water conservation. But they would be borrowed from libraries and encourage families and children to get out into nature, explore Cumberland County, get to know our native species, get to know their environment. And so we put $10,000 in for that one to help pay for the expenses associated with creating these, getting them into our catalog. And we're hoping that we would have them done to pair with our Go Cumberland program, which we're going to do again in 2023. So any questions about any of these projects? I don't have any.
Stacy, is this considered the addendum?
I'll have to check with staff. Keith was preparing a contract addendum, and then these projects will be included in that addendum. And then each year we'll have an addendum in that similar format that will kind of then accompany the MOU.
Opportunity for approval of that addendum if we want, but
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we approve as part of an addendum to the January 19, 2023 Memorandum of Understanding, the listing of projects as noted in our agenda that total up to $100,000. And these are projects and performance goals for the 2023 conditional grants for the Cumberland County Library System.
I second that motion.
Okay, very good. Seconded, it's moved and seconded. If there's no further questions, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, that moves us to item 5, which is other business. So if we have any items that were not appearing on the agenda for discussion, now's the opportunity. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Stand adjourned. Thank you all.